Sexual violence has been getting a lot of attention in America. The downfall of Hollywood moguls such as Harvey Weinstein, the #MeToo movement, and the 2017 Women's March are all good signs of progress in the anti-violence movement. However, these efforts often ignore the specific needs of women of color, specifically Black women. The statistics surrounding these conditions make clear this gap. For example, 29.1% of Black women are victimized by an intimate partner, which is 2.5 times more than the percentage of other races and 35% more than white women in this category. And these numbers only account for women who have reported the abuse. Many women in the Black community never come forward with their abuse, meaning that while these numbers are already high, it is likely that the reality is even worse. This is not helped by the fact that the feminist and anti-violence movements are often limited. In a lot of ways, modern feminism is still a white women's movement. A recent example of feminism's limitations is the 2017 Women's March. Many women of color decided not to attend the historic event due to the fact that the Women's March platform offered only a white-centric narrative of women's issues while hijacking the organized efforts of activists of color. Beyond this, there have been empty attempts of inclusivity, but simply adding a multicultural component to a domestic violence model made for white women does not confront or even address the specific issues Black women often experience. For example, one of the reasons Black women are far less likely to report their abuse is because of the Black community's relationship with the police. Another problem many Black women face is having the economic mobility to leave abusive relationships with both financial and physical security. However, these issues are nothing new and have a deep-rooted history within the United States. Throughout American history, Black women have been objectified by people in higher power in a way that is sexually abusive and exploitative. Black female slaves were made to take off their clothes on the auction block to be quote-unquote examined. They were also subjected to forced breeding with other male slaves and raped by their white slave owners. However, these white men in power needed to create oppressive images of Black women to justify these horrors and shift the blame onto Black women themselves. From antebellum America to the present day, these justifications have served to both legally and socially exonerate oppressors, perpetuate racially charged rape myths, and discourage Black women from seeking help. One example of an image that seeks to do this is the Jezebel. The Jezebel image, often projected onto Black women, depicts these women as temptresses and sexually loose. This image has made its way into modern vernacular through titles such as welfare queens, hoochies, or hood rats, and although these names change throughout time, they all serve to portray Black women as temptresses instead of victims of abuse. The same women who suffer a plethora of excessive sexual atrocities were, at the same time, being labeled as sexually immoral in order to shift blame away from perpetrators of violence. This mindset has penetrated not only the social consciousness, but also many American institutions, particularly the police and legal system. This causes many police officers to be skeptical of accusations of sexual violence from Black women. For this reason, along with the extensive amount of police brutality carried out against the Black community, Black women often struggle to report abuse and sexual assault to the police. Thus, it is clear that these images do not remain within the abstract realm of social stereotyping, but create physical and tangible violence against Black women in all forms. Another oppressive image is the matriarch, the strong head of the house Black woman. During the 1960s, a government report stated that Black women and men had reversed roles as a result of slavery. This created the racist popular opinion that Black women emasculate Black men by taking the lead role in families. This allowed people to stereotype the Black community as a center of violence and poverty, resulting from Black women failing their families and setting lower moral standards for the following generations. Society blamed these Black mothers, as opposed to recognizing institutionalized racism, mass incarceration, employment discrimination, and underfunded schools as the root of this poverty and violence within communities of color. In addition, the matriarch image also has had its part in influencing Black women to not report to the police or seek outside help in the face of assault and abuse. Although the matriarch image helped Black women to develop pride, resilience, and even resistance, it is a trope that often requires silence surrounding sexual violence and the sacrifice of self-care. This leads to Black women isolating themselves and ultimately minimizing their trauma. If we are to end the injustices of sexual violence for all women, we must focus on the individual needs of women of color, particularly Black women. It is important for the feminist movement to seek a broader view of patriarchy and how it blends with other forms of oppression like racism. Patriarchy affects Black women differently from white women or transgender women. It is too complicated to be looked at as a single universal framework, and in doing so, ironically, creates exclusion and erasure. If you would like to help this cause, are interested in volunteering or donating, or just want to learn more, you can visit the local chapters of the YWCA, Color of Change, or the National Coalition of 100 Black Women.